everybody. Joe Testa here from Zildjian and Vic Firth. Very excited about today's guest. Personal hero of mine. I am from Rochester, New York, and so is he. And so he was always a household name as I grew up. He's not a drummer. He's a musician who plays the drums. And I'm very honored and pleased to be able to have him on. So please help me welcome Steve Gadd. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I went to the gym today. We went back to the gym about a week ago. Things got a little bit more comfortable, and so yeah, and getting ready to go back on the road in about a week. Things are starting to happen again. So we'll see
Yeah.
how long. Well, I hope it lasts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do too. And it's funny, I was talking to Sonny Emery just last week, and he told me he was the first one to tell me you guys are doing this next tour together with Eric,
Well, the September leg anyway.
the September leg. Yeah, yeah. So how I wanted to ask you about that because that's pretty exciting. That's a really cool. Have you guys done this together before? You and Sonny Emery?
Yeah, we've done it.
You have. Okay. I
Uh-huh.
didn't.
So yeah, it's fun. Sonny's a
Yeah.
great player, and when you do it with someone like Sonny, who's a great listener and also enjoys trying to lock in. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's really
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Yeah, that's great. I hope that that swings around so I can see that. I'd like to see that show. So that little intro clip we played was from your Way Back Home CD and DVD.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it looks like. And we have that common bond from Rochester. We're both from Rochester, so that was a little special. That was kind of special for me, but even more so for you because I think they were celebrating. Was that your 75th, if I remember right?
No, 70th.
70th. Yeah, of course. That would have been 70. That was wow. Wow, it's going by fast. And we did. I remember calling you about that and saying, "Hey, Steve, I know you're doing that hit up in Rochester. If we came up for Vic, can we come up and film that and
Yeah,
just record it? You remember that?
yeah, you did a great job. Man. It was
Well,
fantastic.
well, it was just kind of we did it initially for the idea was to do just get one clip for Vic, and then it ended up the performance was so amazing. You guys just killed it that it ended up being an actual CD, which was exciting. And
Yeah,
I think that documentary, the part on the DVD with all the different, it's really great. If anybody hasn't seen it, they should check it out because there's a lot of good footage there, interviewing a lot of Steve's friends and family, and just getting a good. It's really nice to see the whole Rochester lineage and how it came up.
yeah.
So yeah, so it's cool. So all right, the first and foremost reason I wanted to get on was because your new book.
Mm.
So I remember last summer you calling me up and or FaceTiming me and started playing some of the stuff right for me, and I was just like, it was so great, and you were really excited about it. So I just wanted to, why don't you tell the story how that book came about in the first place?
Well, it was during COVID. I had like a lot of time at home, and at first I just was just sort of relaxing. But then, I was thinking about when work came back and trying to stay in shape, and so I wanted to start, like playing a little bit every day to just sort of keep myself on a certain level. And instead of playing on the drums, I got a bunch of these sticks, the Vic Firth sticks with the
I mean, the
rubber
chop
tip.
outs.
I had
Yeah.
a bunch of those, and I had them all in different places in the house. But I just started playing on the table, and like normally my warm up is like 10 to 15 minutes before the gig, to just sort of get loosened up, and then they say it's time to go on. But during COVID, I'd do that. I'd start doing those warm up things, and no one said there was a gig, and before you knew it, an hour or two went by, and I got I sort of got into it. I got back into the rudiments, and the more I did it, I mean, it was like I was playing all the time. I'd play a little bit before I had my coffee in the morning, play on the table. After I had my coffee, I'd play. I started getting into these things, and these new little patterns started to show themselves to me. And the fact that I'd been playing my whole life, and all of a sudden some of the old things, I came up with a little bit different way to do some of the old things, and it was exciting. It was something new, and I wanted to write it down so I remembered it, and I wanted to share it. So
Yeah, I remember when you called, you were excited. Like you were pumped about it. It was like it was really and that was like infectious because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I want to see these things." I wanted to start
right.
playing them. It was, and when you played them, they're so musically done.
Yeah, they're good technically. They got a nice feel to them. They're challenging, um, and but they're fun. I enjoy them. I and so and I'm still working it. I'm still like new ideas are coming. I'm gonna start writing that stuff down too.
So what were you telling me there's going to be a book two? You're already working on book two.
I mean, you know what? If the information shows itself to me, I'm gonna write it down. And so some of the ideas, some of uh, the philosophy of the first book in terms of displacing something, like that would sort of go into the second book too, because that's a good way to sort of take yourself through all the different variations of what it could be and which ones are comfortable, and
Yeah, and finding and keeping your
and you pick the ones that work, that are applicable, and then the other ones might not be applied to the kit, but they're whatever you learn from them, rhythmically you can apply.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's all
No,
about
it's
understanding the time better.
yeah. Well, yeah, and I like the way you displace it. You got to kind of know where the one is, or else you get lost.
You have to know where one is. That's
Yeah,
the thing, and that's the tricky part. That's why it's good to do it with a metronome. And when you really get into the trickier displacements, like put an accent on one, so it really lets you. It helps you know where one is all the time,
yeah, yeah. Very
because it's
cool.
easy to lose it when you're displacing stuff.
And one of the things that you were pretty, I remember you were pretty strong about was the way it looked.
Yeah.
That was a big. Explain that to like because that was a big thing for you.
Well, I remembered books that like I read growing up, and before um, the computer thing, and it looked a lot more user friendly to me, handwritten things rather than these computer generated things that they don't. There's no set amount of bars on a line. It's just all over the place. I mean, all the notes are there, but a lot of times there's nothing in terms of form and phrasing and bar numbers that help you. If you look away and you look back, you're lost. It's hard to find out where you were. you know
Yeah, it almost looks the same, right? It's like
yeah,
digital versus
yeah.
analog. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it does look great. We're going to show one of the etudes in a second. But did you like what is your hope that people get out of it? Like, what is it that you want people to get out of this? Is it more warm ups, more etudes, or
It's everything. I hope it inspires them in a way where they um, feel challenged technically, but not just to challenge ourselves technically, but because when you get it, the thing sort of feels good. So there's, you want to do it. There's a reason that it works when you finally get it together at the end. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and so I mean, I think it helps. It helps our time. It helps us learn about phrasing. It uses the rudiments to strengthen our chops, and all the exercises. They include starting them with the right hand, and then repeating it with the left hand. So it's I'm looking for balance too.
Yeah.
Um, I was looking for balance in the way the book looked when you open up pages. You know,
Yeah.
I and the way you present things is important. You know, I didn't want it to have a lot of text. I didn't want it to have a lot of explanation. I wanted the the writing of the music to be clear and as simple as it could be, and and I wanted to get right to it. With a lot of without a lot of talk to explain it. I mean, I tried to make it self-explanatory.
Yeah, well, I think you were successful. I mean, and the other thing that's great about it is that it's fun. They're fun. Like, you remember the Pratt book,
Uh
the
huh.
old Pratt book? Those are rudimental soul. Those are in the Wilcoxon. Those are fun to play. And I
Yeah,
think the ones you wrote are the same idea. Like, they're fun to play. I, I,
I
it,
think they are too. I mean, they're fun for me because they're different. They're things. They're new ways. To sort of uh, extend the old ways of doing things. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
um, I alternated things that normally weren't alternated, so it covered both sides. Yeah, so so the book helps your time if you're working with a click. It'll help you come up with new rhythms with the displacement stuff. It helps you with the phrasing, and it's written in a way where you know uh, there's either 2 or 4 bars on a staff, so that if you look away, when you look back, it's easy to find out where you were. Um, and and the handwritten stuff looks a lot friendlier to
yeah.
me.
And your handwriting's out. Well, actually, let's look at one of the pieces here. Yeah,
Yeah, I
the
mean
flat rock. Look at
that
that.
was the guy that did it was great. And it looks like the way that stuff used to look when I was a kid playing, going through books. I mean, I haven't really gone through books since then. So
Yeah, it looks great. And then and you did this all with Hudson with Rob Wallace, who you used to do. I remember years ago you started doing stuff with him, and guys kind of got your band back together in a way, and like got to do this again. That must have been kind of fun in a way.
yeah, I talked. Remember, I called you, and we talked to John de Christopher, and
Yeah,
while I was working on it, and then when the book was pretty much done, um, I went to Rob because we've got history together, and he was interested in doing it,
yeah,
and I'm pretty happy the way it came out because I mean, I wasn't offered money to do it. That's not why I did it. I just did the book, and then I tried to approach Hudson to get it out there. So there
yeah,
was no. It was just about sharing some information.
yeah. Hey, actually, let's show the cover of it too, because I want people to see what it looks like. Because even the cover is great. Yeah, Gaddiments. It's the best. That's awesome. And that picture we also used. That was from Bill. Bill took that picture, right? Bill
Bill
Zool.
Zoos, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We used that in a Vic Firth ad campaign a few years ago too. That's a great picture, man. Showing off your tats there. That's awesome. And it's kind of funny because rudiments kind of follow you through your whole life. Um, uh, and it's still given to you. I mean, you're still getting something out of them. It's kind of cool.
yeah.
And when you I'm just curious about this. I don't know if you probably don't. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm asking. When you sit down at the kit, do you think about rudiments, or they just happen on the kit? Like, do you think of trying to put stuff in, or it just happens?
I think it. I mean, both. It's some you think about it, and sometimes it can happen.
Hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, normally, if I'm practicing, I haven't really played the kit unless I was doing some work during the pandemic. I mean, I haven't been practicing on it. I've been practicing on the pad. But what I'll do when I go back is I'll start playing some of those things, just monkeying around at the kit and see where it takes me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, um, yeah, it's I like the ideas. I like the new rhythms that displacement process, uh, uncovers, and I'm sure I'll try to apply some of that stuff. But
yeah,
I mean, in general, I mean, it's just like the book's got some good musical ideas, in terms of phrasing and in terms of working on tempo and though though that's that attitude is what you take, to the kit and now it's just about listening to the music and letting that dictate what's going on. Maybe it'll inspire one of the new things, but it's not like the new thing you go fit it into an old thing. It's just like let the music sort of dictate and see where the new thing is going to happen. So I don't. We'll see.
yeah,
I'll start that in the next couple of weeks.
yeah. That's great. That's great. And I guess now you can go to the Hudson Music website I guess you can get the video, see videos. Like we have an example, one of you playing, so people can see how you intended it to be. But
Well,
um,
in the book, I think in the book, when you open the book up, it gives you that information on how to access the link to see the exercises played.
yeah,
Did
that's great.
Did you see
Well,
that? Did you see that?
yeah, yeah, and we got an example of one of the videos. So why don't we show that real quick?
One, two, three, four.
Yeah, that's cool. And so all of them are done like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Now let me see that again. Let me show me that one again.
Okay.
One, two, three, four. Yeah. Yeah, that and it was a simple shoot, just like one camera, not a lot of moving around because it's
Yeah.
distracting for me when I'm looking at a drummer and trying to, understand what he's doing. I don't like the camera moving all over the place. It's distracting.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really cool, and I'm looking forward to working on that book myself. Actually, of course, it'll take me quite a bit of time, but I'm looking forward to it because they sound like a lot of fun, actually. So yeah. So congratulations on that. That's awesome.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So all right. So we did talk. We already talked about the upcoming tour with Eric and playing with Sonny. Um, I
Ja-
wanted to.
James Taylor's going out too.
Yeah, like your band, like what we saw at the beginning of this whole video was a clip from with your band, which is basically the James band, right? Like so,
Well, I mean, that was. that was exactly the band in James's rhythm section
Yeah.
for that. You know, sometimes depending on guys' schedules, Larry Goldings can't always do it, so we try to get Kevin Hayes. Mike Landau had to miss a tour, so we got
Oh,
David Spinoza. Um,
I wish I could have seen that. I
but
mean,
that,
Michael, I love Michael, but I've seen him with you a lot, and I've never saw you with Spinoza, and he's one of my favorites. I would have loved to have seen that.
well, there's a new album for Live at the Blue Note. That's it's like it was recorded in 2018 in December, and during the pandemic, they sent me the tape, and me and Carlo, my son, my youngest son, we remixed it, and
Wow.
Rich Bream mastered it, and
Oh, wow.
I love the way I love the feel on it. You know, it's like you got to check it out, man.
And
Live,
that's David.
yeah, and Spinoza's on it, yeah.
You know, Spinoza and I were talking about you once, and he was saying to me, he was telling me, he's like, you know, Steve's original background was obviously had some marching in it, but was very swing. And
Right.
then there was a point where he calls it embrace the funk.
Yeah.
And he goes, and then then the Steve Gadd everybody knows today came, you know, and um do you how did that happen? Do you remember how that happened? Because he was telling me some stuff about his, you know, his experience and growing up with you a bit and stuff, and it was pretty interesting. But I wanted to hear it from
Oh,
your
yeah,
perspective.
I do. I remember because I went to hear David's band down at I think he was playing at Max's Kansas City or something, and the band was Kenny Asher, Stewie Woods, and David Spinoza and Rick Murata,
Yeah,
and and you know, I came from upstate New York with a jazz background, and you know, loving Elvin and Tony and Jimmy Cobb and you know all those guys. And but I hadn't had a lot of experience with just you know pop playing or funk playing. You know what I mean? Because it just wasn't there wasn't a lot of that where I grew up in Rochester. Meanwhile, David and Rick and Andy Newmark and those guys
yeah,
lived in upstate, right outside the city. So their inspirations were more, of commercial, more funk, more pop kind of stuff. They were, they were, and that's what was a lot of it. Most of that was what was going on in the studios then. That's when people were I mean, we were doing a lot of albums in the '70s, and a lot of them they wanted it to have good grooves and stuff like that. So that was a foreign thing for me, and hearing how great those guys played and how good it felt made me realize that as simple as it sounded, to try and play that little and make it feel that good is a challenge. And I thank God I was in a frame of mind where I embraced that and didn't say, oh man, that's so simple, anybody can do that, because a lot of guys did that.
yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of guys that were more technically oriented would hear the simple stuff and just sort of put it out of their minds because it sounded too simple. But if you got past that and actually really tried to do that stuff, it wasn't simple. It was like a whole other way of playing.
Yeah, and on top of that, what was amazing to me is the fact that those guys all lived on the same street or neighborhood. Like they grew up with it's crazy.
Yeah,
Like Newmark and Rick and David and
Harry
obviously
McCarthy,
Harry McCarthy, and even Jerry, obviously.
Jerry
But
Marat. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, that was a special place to grow up. You know,
unbelievable.
those guys.
And then you just kind of got absorbed
Yeah.
into that group.
Well,
You know?
well, David and I met before I went to New York when I was in Eastman School of Music because I got hired to play at there was a college gig that Marvin Gaye was going to play. I think it was in Potsdam, New York, or something.
Oh, geez, that's where I went to
And
school.
yeah, and 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 they hired me to play drums, and and David Spinoza was fronting his band, and he was opening for Marvin Gaye. So that's where David and I first met. We were kids,
Yeah,
and and he wasn't even playing guitar then. He was just singing and dancing, and in front of his little band. So that's where we met. And then years later, I was doing a jingle, and David, when I finally did end up getting to New York, David had become like the first call guitar guy, and he was also producing things, and had a solo. He eventually had a solo album deal, and was playing. Rick was his friend. They played a lot, so it was. And I was able to befriend those guys, and because I loved the way they played so much, and learn from them, and Rick was played me things that he was listening to, and played me guys that I had never heard of, that were really great players. And it was so, you know, it was a whole new education for me.
yeah, it's amazing. That era, I always thought I missed. I'm off by a few decades. I always wish I could have been around at that time because it just sounds so amazing. And you guys are all still friends today, which I think is the best thing ever.
Yeah, David and I mean, we still, and Rick, I talked to Rick, and I love those guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
great.
it's an amazing time, lightning in a bottle, as they say.
Hmm.
And I think you guys like really like. I mean, how do you like? To me, it's like everything you guys do is about groove. Like, and then someone asked me the other day, like, how would Steve explain what groove was? I said, I can't answer that for him, but I have an idea what you would say, but I'd love to hear what you would say if you had to explain to someone what is groove.
Well, it's an agreement that you have to work towards with everyone you're playing with, and how to make the music, yeah, feel the best. You know what I mean? And so that's what the goal is. And it's not up to any one person. It's up to everyone to sort of put their heads together and work it out. And and when you do, it becomes obvious by the way the music you know feels, and by how it feels to play it, and how it feels to listen to it. um, when you lock it in, it really takes it to another level. You know what I
That,
mean?
that when you said it's an agreement, that to me says everything.
Yeah, it is.
Because
It's not the same agreement. You're not looking for the same agreement on different songs. You're just looking for, you know, everyone's looking for a way to play it. And you got to start all over again with each song, but it's worth it.
yeah, do you approach the instrument any differently in the studio as you do live?
Um, yeah, well, yeah, I do, because in the studio live you're sort of performing, and in the studio you're sort of searching. So that's a little bit different. In other words, when you're finally performing it live, you've gotten all the kinks out, you know what I mean? And now
Yeah.
you're just going for, you figured out the best way to try and do it, and you just try to get it to that level every time. In the studio, you're still, trying to put the whole thing together. You know what I mean? So it's a more inquisitive, creative thing in the studio, and it's a more performance based thing live, I guess.
And back in that day in the 70s, man, you guys are working all the time. Like give me a typical day, like Steve Gadd day at the height of like that era.
Well, it could be like you do a jingle from 10 to 11 plus 20, and then you could have a record date or you could have a record date from 10 to 1, 2 to 5, 7 to 10. They booked them in those segments. And then, or you could have a jingle in the morning and 2 record dates, and then go to McKell's and play, 3 sets, for fun. Um, or you would one of the projects that you had recorded would you do some live playing to sort of get behind that project. So maybe play in a couple of major cities with the person you recorded with, or maybe even do a small tour with them. You know what I mean? It depends on if they could get it together. But there was all of that stuff going on, a lot of recording, a lot of live gigs, and it was a fun time. And it was we didn't want to say no, because a lot of the calls you got were with people that you had heard about or listened to while you were growing up, and you didn't want to say no to playing with one of your idols. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was
Do you
an exciting time.
do you remember or recall like the first time you played with someone like one of your idols where you're like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this right now?
Um, yeah, a lot of times. I
Yeah, I'm
mean,
sure.
a lot of times, like I'm in awe of the people that have called to work with me. Um, and people that are creative and successful, and that I can learn from.
Yeah. And knowing human nature, there's all that competitiveness, and there was but it sounds to me like at that time there was so much work that it was more friendly competitiveness than ruthless. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm just curious about it.
Well, it never. I mean, it is competitive, but not in that you wish you had it instead of somebody else. It's just like, if there's a gig and it's good music, you'd like to play it. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
so. But yeah, it was. We had there was a lot of work, and a lot of me and Rick did a lot of things together. Me and Chris Parker did a lot of things together with stuff. And we did a lot of things separate too, but there was just a lot of variety,
yeah,
and I like the variety.
yeah. I wish that was still the case today. The live music on every corner all the time, and um, it's a bummer the kids don't have. I mean, I barely got that at the end of my. It was just ending when I was coming up. So to hear all those things was like, wow, that was what everybody always wanted it to be. It's great that it's great to hear the stories of it. That's all. It's awesome. So, speaking of stuff, because you brought it up, I wanted to ask you because you seem to have this love for keyboard players, like through your whole career. Like, I mean, whether it was Chick or um, Larry. I mean, everybody. Like, there's always seems to be some kind of. And one of the key ones was your relationship with Richard T. And I never got a chance to meet him, but I mean, man, he was just such a such a gift to the world, you know. And how did you guys connect? How did that happen?
Well, when I went to New York, you know, I went to New York. I was a sideman, and so were everybody. You know, T and Gordon Edwards and Dupree and Will Lee and all those guys, Eric Gale, Ralph McDonald. I mean, they're stars to us, you know, because you know we know who they are because we're musicians and drummers and stuff. But they were sidemen in New York. You know what I mean?
Mm.
They were you know, and so one of the exciting parts of being in New York in those days was, you know, hopefully getting a call to do a gig with some of those guys, you know, because actually some of the sidemen were even bigger stars to me than the
Yeah,
person than the artist.
yeah,
So and those were the guys, you know, you meet guys and hear them play when you go to the city, and you get to know the ones that you want to spend time with because that's, you know, those are the most musical, those are the best feeling things, and those are guys that are just, they're not into drawing attention to themselves, they're into just laying down something that feels great, you know.
yeah,
And so I wanted to be close with those guys, you know, because I had so much I could learn from them.
yeah.
And so Chris Parker was playing. He was the first drummer and stuff. And I was coming into New York maybe like 3 or 4 days a week because I was living in Woodstock and I was doing a band in Woodstock with Mike Maneri and Tony Levin and Warren Bernhardt.
Yeah.
And but I told Chris, I said, there's a couple of nights I'm staying in New York, and you know, we were doing record dates, and then he would go to the McKells and play with stuff. I said, man, if you know, if there's any nights where you got like, you know, a conflict or you want off, you know, if let me sub for you, you know what I mean? And he did, and you know, I was able to. The fact that you know, my attitude was I was there to learn and to try and learn how to do what they did. Um, you know, they allowed me to stay, and I kept on learning and finding ways to, you know, to lock in with those guys and it was great. I had so much fun playing with that band. And
Yeah.
with Christopher and without, I mean, we did a lot of two drum things. He did a lot of stuff alone with that band, and as well as I did. But it was all fun. It was all a joy, and it was that way because of Richard, and he was a big part of
He looked like he was a lot of fun. I got a quick clip here that Rob gave me of you playing with Rich, or with T. So let's watch that for a second because it's amazing. his left hand is just so ridiculous.
He was amazing, man. He was so much fun to play with, man, and hang with.
Yeah, yeah, it must have been outstanding. And by the way, man, those shirts, those shirts are something right there that you
This
guys are wearing.
Yamaha shirts, right?
That's something right there. Speaking of that, your endorsements.
Remember those Yamaha shirts?
I only remember by seeing them. They weren't around when I was. They weren't that big. You would have never wore a logo that big when I was there. You used to yell at me all the time. The logo's got to be smaller.
Oh, yeah, they
Yeah.
definitely do. Yeah.
Oh, so good. But speaking of endorsements, hey, speaking of which, Yamaha, Zildjian, and Vic. I mean, your whole career, man. Um, what are your thoughts about that? Like, you obviously that means a lot to you, sticking with those with the brands you picked.
Well, I mean, I've
Why?
got a good relationship with them, and that that's important to me. Plus the fact with Vic, when I was in before Vic even had a stick company, he was making his own sticks and just selling a few, and I was playing those in school. He had a couple of, I think he had three different things, like like a concert one, and then a little bit smaller one, and then he had these ones with real small tips on them. He made great stuff. So when I went with Yamaha, Yamaha was making the sticks that I was playing, and given a set of sticks away with every set they sold of recording customs, right? And during that time, Vic had started his company and wanted to do signature sticks, and he kept on, we had meetings and stuff, and I was being loyal with Yamaha, but I finally, after a while, went to Yamaha and I said, listen, I've got, I have this offer, and so can you can you do the same deal? I mean, you know, and they said no, they can't. So I went with Vic, and we've been together ever since.
Yeah,
And he makes quality. Vic, all of his products are on the level of the way he approached playing timpani, playing music. You know what I mean? He was
yeah,
like, um, top of the line.
yeah,
And
yeah. He always had some good stories about you.
yeah, we had fun. I
Yeah,
liked Vic.
yeah. He
And
was he was he was the best, man. He was a good dude. Um, but it's interesting because your involvement with, I think personally, your involvement with all those brands have helped you help those brands get their gear to a different level at different stages, and I'm sure, and they obviously helped you as well. It was a mutual relationship. But like, I mean, well, if let's start with Vic because we're talking about it. I mean, the sticks being black sticks, and then the brushes, your signature brushes with the bent. I mean, these are all things that you absorbed somewhere along your way in the career and just asked a company to do. Um, Yamaha, I mean, the recording custom, man. I mean, I know, when you went to Japan, you came home, and then you're the one that told them put some bottom heads on it, and let's do the hanging floor time, all that stuff. Um, the
yeah,
putting the rings on the snare drums. I mean, it, there's a lot, and then on the Zildjian side, similar stuff. So it's amazing to me, um, how that a lot of that stuff that you had input on has changed the drum industry, whether you know it or not. I'm sure you know it, but it's pretty awesome, man.
well, we took the tone controls out of the inside of the drums on the recording custom. So any muffling on the toms is done, with either those gels or some kind of tape and tissue on the outside. um, anything inside the drum affects the
Yeah.
sound. But I mean, it was great because Yamaha, you know, listened. You know what I mean? They actually, that was when I was playing. I wanted to play a 10-inch tom, and they started, putting that in the catalog, the 10-inch tom.
Yeah. And then
Uh,
the piano
and
black color.
yeah, I like the black.
Yeah.
I've always liked that black color.
That's why I was shocked when I saw you with that white kit on the way back home. I was like, where did that white kit come from? It was a complete flip there. But yeah, that was and now do you ever find yourself wanting to play some of that the older gear from a nostalgic standpoint?
I like playing older gear.
Yeah.
I like vintage stuff. It's there's something. I don't know. There's just something really comfortable about when you can find an old instrument that you know still sounds good and got its own character. You know,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. I mean, on the cymbal side, that especially it's true on the cymbal side. I mean, you your sound on cymbals has been something that people identify immediately, especially the hi hats you used to have back in the 70s. Um, those are some amazing sounding cymbal. I mean, all the cymbals you play, a lot of it's your touch. I mean, obviously, but like when you did the K session series, like what were you going for when you started that when you did that?
What the the symbols that I put out.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I was just trying to have them duplicate the symbols that I was playing.
yeah,
I mean, the I had gone in when I was in the army. I went to New York and went to Brooklyn to Gretsch in Brooklyn, and they were selling K Zildjians, and I picked out hi hats, and I had two light ones and one heavy one, and I used the heavy one on top and used the lighter ones on the bottom, and then the lighter ones after playing for a long time would sort of fatigue out, and I'd use the other one until it fatigued out, and then I would start, putting other symbols with the top one, the top heavy K that I had, and eventually the top K, the heavy one that um, the hole got bigger
oh,
from
yeah,
the hi hat, clutch, and I couldn't center it after that. So there was nothing we could do. But
yeah.
those were some great symbols, man.
They
It was
were, man. Actually, this is a total random story or question for you, and I don't even know if you have the answer to it because it's so old of a question. But I was talking to Zach Danziger about it, and he's like, we gotta ask Steve about this." So the CTI Summer Jazz at Hollywood Bowl, 1972. I'm sorry, this is very random, but it's something that I'm so curious about now after being laid out on me. Um, do you recall? Did you play on that gig? I mean, it's a long time ago. It's 72.
I don't remember for a CTI.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think I. Who would I have played with?
I don't. It was an all-star band, and it's weird because it has your name on it, but then in the liner notes it says Jack DeJohnette's playing. But when you listen to it, it man, it if it's not you, I don't know how it's everything you. It's your sound, your hi-hats even sound like you. It's that. And then there's somewhere if you dig deeper, you can find liner notes that say re-recorded in 1977. So someone overdubbed the drums, re-recorded it. And I was like, maybe Steve didn't do the original, but then did the re-record.
I might have
And
been.
yeah, and it's got Jack's name, you, and then even somewhere it mentions Terry Silverlight for some reason. And But man, when you listen to it, you're like, if that's not Steve, I don't know. I even let Charlie Drayton listen to it. He goes, "That's Steve Gadd. That's Steve. There's no one else that can't be anybody else." But I didn't know. I was like, I promise I'll ask because everybody's been asking that question. Not everybody, but there's a certain group of us that have been trying to debate that.
Yeah, I might have done because Creed, would take, things out of the archives, like, and want to re-release them, but make them more contemporary. So maybe he would want it to be less, wants a backbeat or something. I remember having to do things like that. So that could be that. That could be it.
Yeah, yeah. That maybe that's what it. They just got the liner notes all messed up, but yeah, that's cool. All right, sorry, it was a little random, but I wanted can you talk about a little bit about your brushes and why you did the bend on the brushes, like what we were going for there?
Yeah, I didn't want it to get stuck on the head. You know what I mean? If you bend the tip a little bit, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah,
Right. Then it's sort of the flat part hits the head, and it's easy to get a surface sound, and the ends don't get stuck on any kind of surface on the head. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. And you when you play brushes, it reminds me of the way Alvin used to play brushes.
Well, I
Like,
love the way he played brushes.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me because I know you're a fan of Alvin's, but I see it because you play it like you own it, like, and that's how Alvin played it. It was like there was no, it was musical, but it was like you grab hold of the moment. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
So,
I love the way he played.
and
I,
I don't know, a couple years ago, I saw you had four brushes. You had two brushes in each hand.
it's just because it makes it so you can get a little bit bigger sound without having to press down harder. You know what I mean? It just gives you a little bit more weight, so you
Yeah,
don't have to. So you can relax a little bit more and still get a nice sound.
yeah, it sounded great. It was such a good thing. All right, so I wanted to ask you about your health. How you All right, I was you've been playing for decades, and you have I don't care how long you're playing, like that night, you still have the same energy the whole night. It's pretty amazing. And like even like I was talking to Will Lee about it, and he was telling me about like when you do the Love Rocks concert. I mean, that's a 4 hour show, man. And if you watch you at the beginning of the night or the end of the night, it seems like the same energy level. How have you maintained that energy throughout all the years?
Um, well, I started exercising, um, and I think that's really important. And I watch my diet. My wife Carol, uh, she's had a problem. She can't eat certain things because it bothers her. It bothers her stomach and her digestion. And so I've eliminated a lot of the things that she's eliminated, which ended up being, like bread, pasta, sugar, um, you know, potatoes, rice, a lot of the carbs and a lot of the things that break down into sugar.
Everything that I love.
And, and me too.
Yeah,
And started, and I stopped eating meat. I eat mostly fish. I stopped eating chicken and turkey. Although, I mean, I'm not, if there's no other choice, I'll do it. Or every once in a while, I'll crave like a good steak, and I might do it, and it tastes good, but I can tell by how tired I am when I'm trying to digest it, how much it takes out of you. You know what I mean? So I just feel better when I eat lighter and eat healthy. And exercise is the best way to stay in shape for and be ready for gigs too. You know what I mean? That's a good way to keep yourself ready, along with practicing a little bit of the rudiments and
Of
stuff.
course.
But that physical thing and your diet, and how much sleep you get, and all of those things are important. And So, and I've been doing it long enough to know I can tell how my body feels after I eat something that maybe I really like but isn't that healthy. You can feel what it does to you. You know what I mean? So, and I like the way I feel after I eat light. I don't feel as tired, and and I don't I try not to put on weight. I hate to put on weight because I got to sit down, and we sit down when we play, and it's like, man, if your stomach's it's terrible. I hate that shit.
Yeah. You just want to kick back
It's
if you feel too heavy.
uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable and it's distracting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Carol, your wife is amazing, and she's helped me out. Like she's really tuned into that, man. Unbelievable. And she yells at me every time she talks to me.
Well, she had to do it to help herself. She had
Yeah.
to, she was forced because a lot of doctors want to just the first thing they want to do is operate and
Yeah. Or give you some
remove,
kind of drug. Yeah.
yeah, or operate or give you a pharmaceutical or remove something, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
there's other ways to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And so you're an avid runner, obviously. I mean, how much are you still running a lot? You still run the same amount as
You
normal?
know what? Yeah, I did it today. I went back to the gym about a week and a half ago.
Oh,
Um, we didn't do it before because of the virus.
COVID. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I like it. In Phoenix, the temperature's so hot here. Like if you don't get up before the sun comes up, it's hot anyway. But if the sun's out, it's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah. You
So
can't do it.
having a club to go to is nice, and I've been pretty disciplined about getting back. So yeah, I'm going to continue now to
Is that
I
the only exercise you do is run, or do you do other
no,
things?
I do since I joined the gym, I was doing some light resistance stuff, and push ups and sit ups, um, those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And I'm. Do you try to keep a regimented, like a real strict schedule, or that was something I remember. It just so happens that it's Sunny also recommended to me. He's like, stop getting so crazy about keeping a schedule. Just go when you can go. Don't beat yourself up mentally. Just do it when you can, so that you do something.
Yeah,
And
you don't have to commit to doing. I mean, if your workout is an hour, or if it's 45 minutes, and one day you can only do 15 or 20, you might just do it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, it really that it seems so trivial, but it really was instrumental in changing for me. Like I've just said, I'm like, stop putting that on myself and just go
Yeah, just do
when you
what
can
you
go.
can. Do what you
Yeah,
can.
yeah,
And some days you'll be able to do more than others. But as
yeah,
long as you're consistent about, you know, how often you go, like your body will one day your body will feel stronger than another day. You know what I mean? Based on how much sleep you get and what you eat. But you never get down to where you feel like you're starting all over again. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah. And I've noticed now that I'm getting older. I noticed if I take a week off, man, the first day back is just 1 week. It's like I'll be like, damn, that's
yeah,
hard. Yeah,
yeah.
it's weird.
If you don't think you're getting results, stop for a while and go back, and you'll see. how hard it is to even, to go. You can't go back to, you can't start up where you left off. You know what I mean? You got to come back and,
Build
ease
back up.
back into it again.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Speaking of, because I know that you run all the time when you're on the road and you're exercising, you keep up with it, like you said, so you can get through the gigs and stuff. Another thing, I was curious about how do you handle, because you've been on the road a lot most of your life. How do you handle the family thing? Not to get, I don't want to get too personal, but just, that's hard to balance when you're traveling, and
Yeah,
I'm
it's
always amazed. Like you and Carol been together forever. You got four beautiful kids. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And how do you do it?
we just do it the best we can. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, you know, it's just you have to. I was very, I am fortunate because Carol knows the business and she knows what's involved. So, you know, being away on the road, she wasn't surprised by that. And you just have to look for some balance. You know what I mean? Um, and try and keep it a team effort.
yeah,
And you do whatever you can to make it work out. It's like a roller coaster.
yeah,
But I mean, that's what life is.
yeah.
It's easy.
Especially,
Yeah, it's easy to say everything's good when you're going downhill, but when you got to go back uphill again, it's like you still got to apply those same things. You know what I mean? It's not as easy.
yeah, yeah. I know. Um, when I have a question, I ask a lot of people this question, and I don't think I've ever asked you this. I mean, usually when we talk, it's about family and stuff like that. We don't get into these kind of conversations, but practicing how to practice. I've been asking a lot of guys who are very talented. How is there some, and it might be something that you just do naturally and don't even think about, and that other people don't do that. I never learned how to practice properly, and I've seen the guys like the very talented ones like yourself know how to practice or did at some point knew how to practice and be able to focus and get, even if you only had a limited amount of time, get a lot out of that a limited amount of time. Do you have any helpful hints on how to practice for people?
Um, well, I think there's two. The kind of practice where you have something, you have something technically in mind that you're going for. So it's not like it's like it now. You're trying to get it comfortable and you want to make it so you can play the bass drum at the same time, and it's like that kind of thing. The other kind of practice was when I was doing the Gaddiments. It's more of where I wasn't practicing anything in particular. I was just doing things to warm up. You know what I mean? Just exercises, and I got into like this other kind of zone where I used to be. Get into it when I was a kid, writing parts for drum corps, and it's
Mm,
just this place where you try to figure out different ways to challenge yourself with the rudiments, how to play them a little bit differently, you know, and so and for me, when I got into that zone, then that's when new things started to show themselves to me. Um, but it wasn't like I was practicing anything in particular. I wasn't trying to do any one thing. I was just trying to stay connected so that my hands didn't shut down and I had to, start all over again when work came back. So, and what I learned with the rudiment thing is like that displacement thing is like it's a little formula where you can take one thing and and apply this displacement thing and come up with 4 different ways of doing of the same thing, technically, that sounds different. So you don't have to learn a new technical thing, but you have to learn. You have to get comfortable forming the independence between your hands and your mind, because you're not doing anything new with your hands technically, but where you're starting it in a different place makes everything feel different.
Yeah.
So that's that displacement thing is a way to organize the way you practice. You know what I mean? It gives you a little bit of a thing that you can go to. So there's a creative kind of thing where you're sort of meditating and just letting things happen and see what happens. And then there's the one where you're really trying to, technically do something that you want to be able to do on the drums. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I find there's so much, it seems like so much noise today, mental noise, trying to clear that out and just focus on any one thing. It's hard. It's like you feel like everything's trying to get you to be multitasking all the time, which I don't think that's a natural thing for a brain.
I'm not a good multitasker. I'm one of these guys that I have to, I don't even like if I'm doing a project. I don't, I don't like to be working on another project when I'm working. I like to be able to put all my energy into that. You know what I mean? A lot of guys got their cell phones on during the session. They're taking calls. I'd rather just sort of like put that on hold and just get into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen you approach a session before, and since you, at least what I've seen you do before, and I don't know if you do this all the time or not, but you'll, play the demo and you'll read down the chart. You won't even try to play it. You'll just try to absorb it, it seems.
Just
You'll
listen.
just listen before you even try to apply anything to or play it. And that was enlightening to me to see you do that first at one
Yeah.
time.
The other thing is before they don't talk about it until after you've heard it. You know what I mean? If you haven't heard it and you start talking about it, you're going to create problems for yourself and in the things that you think you're going to do in your head based on what this guy was saying. And when you hear the music, it might not have anything to do with that. So it's better to listen to the thing. It's better to listen to it a couple of times, play it a couple of times, and then talk about it. But definitely don't talk about it before you've heard it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That makes total sense to me.
Because you'll start
You're
creating.
preconceiving.
Like
Yeah.
you're gonna, so I'll do this. It'd be, and it's like, come on.
Yeah.
You
That
haven't
may
even,
not be the right musical thing to do. But
right.
just, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
words can't express what you should do as well as the music does, right?
Yep. That's why there is music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Um, Nerves. Did you ever get nervous playing, or do you still get nervous at all?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, you want it to be good. It's it's not. You want to be able to get a good sound on the bandstand. You hope you can hear everything on the monitors. You hope it's good in the house. What I know is if you're playing with guys that can play and that listen, if you can hear each other, we'll go up there and have a ball.
Yeah.
If we can't hear each other, we're going to be up there pretending, and that's not I don't like to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the thing I'm cautious about is the sound, and depending on other people to do jobs that are important for us to be able to do ours. So that's always, unless you're going with your own people all the time, that's always a concern.
Hmm.
Um, and can cause you to be a little bit anxious.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just if you're doing a if you're doing a starting out a new tour and you're doing a new show, you'll be nervous at the beginning to make sure that it flows good, you get all the tempos right, that all the changes are good, but once you get it going, then you can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
But I want it to be the best that it can be, so I'm always a little on the edge of my seat, in a good way.
Yeah, I think that is probably a good thing. 'Cause some people get so nervous it's not a good thing, but enough to just keep the attention and focus, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's cool. Um, okay, couple quick things, and then we'll wrap this up because it's been like a minute. I'm sorry, man, this has been a while, but I get so into it with you. Kind of random, but do you think there's any part of your playing, what would you say is some things you're working on right now that you're trying to get better at, like certain things that you're trying to work on from a
Uh,
playing perspective?
well, I mean, all of the Gaddiments are the type of thing where you can't, if you leave them for a while, then you know what I mean? You have to
They
stay.
come back and mess with you.
Yeah. So I work on those. I'm working on these other ideas, constantly working on exercises on the table that are interesting technically, maybe a little bit different technically than what I've been doing this displacements thing with all different things. I try to just be able to understand displacing anything I want now, you know what I mean, just as a challenge. So I'm working on that stuff. And then when I get back to the kid again, we'll see where that takes us. Maybe I'll be trying to, apply some of those things from the book into the music. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Um, so Dennis Chambers and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we just got into talking about stuff, and he was saying, nothing's original, right? Everything is comes from someone before us. We've I think the great players all know that and admit that. They always talk about, they pay homage to the guys who came before for them. How do you absorb that stuff and then make that you make an original version? How does that, how would you say that comes about?
Well, I think, it first starts with you emulating those people. You know what I mean? Trying to, hearing something that you liked and then trying to duplicate it. And then probably, everybody has ways of doing things that are comfortable for them. It might not be comfortable for me. So when I'm trying to emulate another guy, I can only do it to a certain point. And then if I try to do it exactly like the way he did it, some of it might not be comfortable for me. So then I can sort of, go and try to do that part of it that was uncomfortable, find a way that was comfortable for me. That might be a little bit different from the way the guy that I heard do it,
Mm,
but it still gets the same feel because I was able to emulate him in a comfortable way for me.
right.
And that's the way probably that those ideas from someone else can become your own because you've sort of used part of that idea, and then in order to make it sound like that musically, like what the guy did, you have to tweak it for yourself. And in doing that, then you come up with your own little thing. So
Yeah.
it's a combination of things.
Yeah,
But
that's cool.
it's always the inspiration always comes from hearing what someone else does and trying to be able to do it like them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Um, do you if you look if you were to be able to talk to the 25-year-old Steve Gadd, what would you say to him?
Oh,
Now that you're that much wiser, now, what would you say? Look, this is what you need to do, this, and or you don't do this or don't do that.
I mean, I would, if I could not do drugs and alcohol, that would have been something I would have probably tried to talk myself out of. But, our best thinking gets us where we are today. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
um, you know, I've that would be it. I mean, I would try to discourage myself off from the road of drugs and alcohol. But other than that, I don't know. I'm pretty. I feel okay about how hard I've worked and the people that the people that I looked up to and try to emulate.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bad about where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
And
I'm.
if I hadn't drank and drugged, I might be different. But it doesn't make any sense to try and figure that stuff out.
Right. Well, you should know there are thousands of people who look up to you, and you've been an inspiration to a lot of people, man, and including me. I mean, it's a little bit more personal for me because I feel that Rochester connection, and I grew up you were a household name when I grew up, and the fact that I have the honor of working with you and just being a friend of you and Carol's I'm like you said before. Sometimes you pinch yourself when you're on a gig, you're working with some of your heroes. I feel the same way with you,
Yeah. Well,
and I know a lot of people do. Johnny D, and we're all. I just feel honored to be even in the club.
I feel honored to be with you guys too. Fonz, come on, you know that.
That was nothing but the mission from Gadd was such a great memory, hanging out with you guys on that gig. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with me on this. I know we've been trying to do it for a while, and I appreciate you making the time to do it. And it means a lot to me. I appreciate it, and to us, everybody here.
It means a lot to me too, man. Thank you. I appreciate all that you do, Fonz. You know that.
All right, doctor. All right,
You've been doing a lot for a long time for me, and I appreciate it, man.
Oh man, well, you've been doing more for me for a lot longer. Trust me.
All right.
It's
Very cool.